More than a century and many lifetimes ago, a journey began. As with many journeys, it was not easy.
The sisters had a decree from Bismarck during the Kulturkampf that they had two choices. They could either disband. Some of them remained in Germany and actually went underground, or leave the country.
Fleeing religious persecution in their native Germany, an intrepid group of religious women from the Franciscan Sisters of the Sacred Heart crossed an ocean and half a continent, first to Indiana, then to northern Illinois, to begin anew in a land of freedom and opportunity.
Well, when our sisters first came, one of the things that they wanted to do was to care for the sick and also to be attentive to the poor.
We are Franciscan Sisters, and so we follow St. Francis's rule. And St. Francis went out and helped people who were despised by society, and he treated them with dignity no matter what station of life we're in.
It was 1876. There were 24 of them, and following their vows and guiding mission, they set about to show God's love to all, especially the poor and marginalized, to bring peace and healing to a broken world.
They started right away a home for the elderly, Sacred Heart Home as we called it, where it was founded, and it's still there today.
Over the next several years, in addition to learning a new language and customs, they established 9 separate community hospitals near their base in Joliet, Illinois.
Well, the story about Joliet is the fact that Joliet was a growing metropolis, so they began these hospitals often in just a large house with a few beds.
Then a generous woman whose own life had known medical hardship donated a home to the Archdiocese of San Francisco. This act of benevolence presented the Archbishop with a problem. They had a building, but who would operate it? The Franciscan Sisters' expertise in healthcare was now well known within the church community, so he wrote and asked them to come to San Francisco to help him with this mighty task. Fearing the challenges this mission might bring, the Reverend Mother asked for volunteers among the sisters. Everyone's hand went up. Thus, in August of 1898, a handful of sisters climbed aboard the fastest possible way to get to San Francisco, a 5-day trip on the recently opened Transcontinental Railroad.
Some of the sisters that came out to California were some of the same sisters that left their homeland in Germany. So they sort of had that pilgrim attitude to go where they sensed there was a real need.
Upon arrival, they discovered an empty 2-story, 10-room Victorian home, idle for years and in a major state of disrepair. Its best attribute was a spectacular view of the entire city to the north and San Francisco Bay surrounding it. Many evenings they were treated to magnificent sunsets, followed by the magical twinkling of the streetlights at nightfall. Little did they know they were lighting a lamp of their own, taking the first steps in a journey toward what would become a miracle, a massive healthcare institution unlike any other in the world, one that lives on to this day.
I'm the only Franciscan sister here in California, and I feel very privileged to work with QueensCare because it's like fulfilling what our sisters started, and I'm continuing that as much as I can.
With 20 beds, the Franciscan Sisters of the Sacred Heart's Home for the Incurables, as it was first called, became an oasis of healing for the poor and dispossessed, a shining ray of hope upon those who had lost it. They paid themselves nothing but managed to raise enough through collections at local churches to pay for supplies and a small but growing staff, and feed their patients and themselves. Their charitable works were not as well appreciated by their neighbors, many of whom resented the flow of diseased ne'er-do-wells in and out of their doors.
When the sisters founded the first hospital in San Francisco, they had a lot of objection from their neighbors because they were taking care of the folks that nobody wanted to deal with.
There were even reports the KKK planned to burn the place to the ground, a plan that was fortunately thwarted. Then one day, the ringleader of the neighborhood opposition showed up on their doorstep with his gravely ill daughter in his arms, the nearest care being miles away. Without question or delay, the sisters rendered life-saving treatment for the girl, and their greatest opponent was transformed into one of their fiercest advocates. Before long, they had earned the respect of many San Franciscans, and St. Joseph's Hospital, as it became known, continued to thrive, now building sizable additions to add even more beds. And then, on the morning of April 18, 1906, it was a good thing St. Joseph's newly opened north wing was built with sturdy wood frame construction. Because at precisely 8:12 a.m., a massive 7.9 magnitude earthquake struck, devastating most of San Francisco. It was also a good thing St. Joseph's was so far from downtown, because it was spared in the fire that ravaged much of what was left of the city.
Where do people reach when everything is totally devastated? We have pictures of them living in tents outside St. Joseph's Hospital. We know that they did everything they could for the people of San Francisco. Their own needs were put aside. They spent themselves for the people that they had promised to care for.
For months following the cataclysm, the sisters worked side by side with the Red Cross to minister to the people's needs, forever earning both gratitude and respect from the citizenry, along with a significant increase in contributions and the added benefit of free fares for life on San Francisco's famous cable and streetcars to anywhere in town. The Articles of Incorporation for St. Joseph's Home and Hospital were filed a few months later, and it eventually grew to a 6-story, 225-bed hospital with a nursing school and convent for the Franciscan Sisters, along with a beautiful Byzantine-inspired chapel. St. Joseph's became the name of both the institution and the organization that oversaw it for many decades to come. These buildings stand to this very day, albeit as the exclusive Park Hill condominium complex, now in the very heart of the city, still right across the street from the beautiful Buena Vista Park. Before long, there came an urgent plea from the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, which had recently overtaken San Francisco as California's largest city and was now experiencing the same needs in its growing poor and underserved population.
The bishop invited our sisters to come out to Los Angeles to build a hospital, and he wanted it to be named Queen of Angels after Our Lady of Queen of Angels of Los Angeles. And he said he wanted us to build the hospital, but he didn't have any money to give us, and he gave them permission to go begging in his diocese, and so they did.
In 1925, once again relying on community donations, the Franciscan Sisters of the Sacred Heart set about to build Queen of Angels Hospital, which would become the largest privately owned hospital west of the Mississippi. Ever since, their mission has continued to expand, to care for those on the edges of society without ever expecting repayment.
Our sisters here at Queen of Angels Hospital, I know every night fed the poor because it was during the Depression time. I thought that was a great example of their love for the poor, because St. Francis, he saw what other people didn't see, a human being.
St. Francis of Assisi, one of his moments of conversion was when he met a leper. When he looked in the leper's eyes, he saw the face of Christ. And that's always been important to me because we all have a leper within us, and then to find the compassion for that.
As one might expect, the struggle to deliver quality care on these terms was constant. A $100,000 surplus one year, a $200,000 loss the next, constant uncertainty, always praying to divine providence to save the day. Their prayers were answered in the form of two men who would help shape the destiny of this great organization for decades to come. Arthur Barron and J.J. Brandlin, who most folks just call Art and Joe, became the first lay people named by the sisters to sit on the Queen of Angels Board of Directors in 1967.
When you come to a time when you know that the systems have become so complex and Mr. Brandlin and Mr. Barron provided us with professionalism that was needed to deal with the healthcare system.
They brought with them a wealth of legal, accounting, and business expertise, along with a fierce desire to see this great institution prosper.
Yeah, Joe and Art were very good Catholic businessmen, and they respected the sisters' work.
We were blessed by these two men who definitely had the call to mission also.
With the full support of the sisters, Brandlin and Barron's guidance and direction enabled Queen of Angels to deliver top-quality care to anyone and everyone, regardless of their ability to pay. They negotiated smart leasing deals and partnerships that helped generate income while defraying costs. They interacted with government entities at the state and federal level to drive more income and firmly establish their nonprofit status. At the sisters' insistence, they also took on oversight of St. Joseph's Hospital in San Francisco, which was experiencing its own range of financial challenges, forming what would eventually become known as St. Joseph's Health Support Alliance. At the heart of it all was the mission to care for the needy, to help those who had slipped through everyone else's cracks, to remain an oasis of solace and healing, and do all that amidst steep and steady inflation in the cost of everything, especially healthcare. And then, on October 1st, 1987, this time at 7:42 a.m., there came another act of God when the Whittier Narrows earthquake struck, its epicenter less than 25 miles from Queen of Angels Hospital. The damage was severe, and then came another blow. The cost to bring the aging building up to California's strict earthquake safety codes made it questionable whether or not it could affordably be made safe.
When you're faced with, do we just close the doors? Or do we see how the mission can be held and moved forward maybe in a totally different mode?
Meanwhile, another medical institution just across town was experiencing another kind of structural failure.
Our hospital at Hollywood Press was state-of-the-art facility, brand new campus, beautiful buildings. However, we didn't have any money.
Even with its modern facility, Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital was in default on over $50 million in debt.
We had such huge expenses because all of the community that we were serving basically was indigent. You just could not raise enough to really support all the care that we were providing.
Despite a court order to find a partner to help balance the books, several area hospitals either made unacceptable offers or declined outright.
When the state was looking for a buyer for Hollywood Press, initially Queen of Angels declined because of the financial condition. And over time, they were convinced, if you will, by the state that they needed to make an offer.
The decliners included Queen of Angels. The state of California insisted, and so they set about to find a solution.
Because of the earthquake, the Queen of Angels Hospital did not have a good building, and Hollywood Press was pressed for money because they had their bills.
The Franciscan Sisters were fearful of the impact that transaction might have on their community, but it was a very risky proposition. Joe Brandlin and Art Barron suggested that they get a legal opinion from a large, well-known law firm who said, you're not at risk, there's a corporate division.
And so, in early 1989, a new entity was born, Queen of Angels Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center, and it would grow to be listed among the top 100 hospitals in the nation by Modern Healthcare magazine in 1997.
What I saw with Joe Brandlin at the time of the merger of the hospitals was that he really was interested in creating a model, a way to serve the community. And both the boards were just very committed to service and how to be good stewards of the donated assets.
Brandlin and Barron guided the complex and lengthy merger process, which included more than just buildings, beds, and equipment.
Queen of Angels staff were like family. they had to merge in with Hollywood Press, they felt the same way about their staff. There was a little friction between the two at the beginning.
The nuns made agreement with the hospital. There always be chaplains there, and they put aside money in the trust to pay for the salaries of the chaplains, and it's just wonderful that they had the foresight to do that.
I believe that the message of the Franciscan Sisters of the Sacred Heart and that mission and purpose that they felt all has come through in the way that the two hospitals, when they merged.
The Franciscan Sisters believed wholeheartedly in the promise of the plan, but their own order had not grown at anywhere near the rate of the hospitals. With fewer of them to take an active leadership role, they turned over control to St. Joseph's and withdrew their sponsorship of most of their California entities.
Because of the age of many of our sisters, we're not as hands-on as we once were. Our legacy continues through mission-driven people doing works of neighborly love.
Barron and Brandlin wanted to reassure the sisters they could reassert themselves at any time for any reason. So they each wrote, signed, and delivered undated letters of resignation that the sisters could execute at any time. That time never came. It was clear from the start that no decision to care for people would be made based on any beliefs they may or may not have, upholding the ecumenical mission begun by the sisters nearly a century ago.
God's for everybody, not just Catholics or Presbyterians or people who have no religion. God made us all, so we're all important in God's family.
We've always been interested in serving those, regardless of their background, regardless of their desirability, if you want to put it that way.
The patients would always come first, regardless of who they were, what they believed, where they came from, or how much money they had. While losing money during the first years of the merger, the new organization steadily improved its financial condition, eventually producing a surplus and enabling the good works to continue. All the while, there was a steady migration toward different forms of healthcare delivery, with HMOs and for-profit systems continuing to reshape the landscape.
Probably in about 1996 or 1997, the board decided that it made more sense to sell the hospital than try to form a health system. So now what are we going to do with the excess cash that the hospital has accumulated from profitable operations? We need to get that back into the community.
Envisioning a different way to help the poor, the board of directors, following the leadership of Barron and Brandlin, finalized the sale of the hospital on June 12, 1998, generating a considerable sum of money.
Sometimes people don't understand that not-for-profit hospitals are accepting donations from individuals in the community, and that we also have that accountability to our donors.
So before the hospital sold, before QueensCare was created, they decided that they were going to form a grant-making program. And I thought, well, I think I can do that because it's just like lending, but you don't get paid back. But everything else is the same.
When added to accumulated profits from operations, a fund was created that would go on to provide health care to those in need into the next millennium. Over the course of less than 2 decades, through considerable effort and dedication, Brandlin and Barron took an organization that was tens of millions of dollars in debt to one worth many millions more, now operating under a new name, QueensCare.
I worked at Queen of Angels Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center for a few years until it was purchased by a tenant, the for-profit hospital. I didn't really want to work for a for-profit. I really wanted to work with the poor. At QueensCare,
now came a new question: what to do with all this money? Under nonprofit laws, there were clear do's and don'ts, and a whole lot of limitations and conditions.
Shortly after selling the hospital, when we were setting up our inpatient healthcare fund programs, we looked at the idea of making grants to hospitals versus setting up contracts with them. Grants could be used for more general purposes, but we didn't know that those grants would have the direct impact on low-income patients that we wanted to see.
Art Barron and Joe Brandlin did not envision QueensCare becoming a mere grant maker or check writer. Instead, they envisioned a sea change in healthcare, a seamless system universally available regardless of one's legal status or ability to pay, a system that could help people where they are. At the time of the hospital sale, its 4 outpatient clinics were folded into Franciscan clinics, providing primary, vision, and dental care to help uninsured residents of Los Angeles County. Following the hospital sale, QueensCare and Franciscan clinics operated as sister organizations within St. Joseph's Health Support Alliance, as each one's corporate member. They shared a mission of helping low-income people access needed health care. This continued until 2001, when it became clear that Franciscan clinics should become a federally qualified health center, in part to access needed federal funding. As required by FQHC regulations, St. Joseph's released Franciscan clinics from its control, and the legal connection between the clinics and QueensCare transitioned to a partnership. Franciscan clinics became an FQHC in 2003. In 2008, Franciscan clinics dropped its corporate name in favor of QueensCare Family Clinics, by which it was most commonly known. And then, in 2013, changed it again to QueensCare Health Centers to reflect the breadth of services it provided in the community. QueensCare and QueensCare Health Centers, 2 independent nonprofits, operated in partnership for 25 years from the sale of the hospital in 1998 until 2023, providing critical healthcare services to residents across LA County. Under the partnership, QueensCare provided nearly $5 million per year to the partnership to fund the health center's operations. In 2023, QueensCare and QueensCare Health Centers decided to conclude their partnership to enable each to adapt more effectively to the evolving healthcare landscape and meet the changing needs of their community. QueensCare remains dedicated to its mission to enhance the health and well-being of the community.
One of the things that I do admire about QueensCare is that they're very clear about what their mission is. They're very clear about who they serve and where they serve. So it is about healthcare for the underprivileged or those on the margins in Los Angeles.
When you're dealing with a population that oftentimes doesn't get respect, is not shown compassion, it was pretty obvious what our values had to be. And I think the work of the Franciscan Sisters guided that thinking.
Making primary care available to many who would otherwise go without, keeping them out of ERs and actually driving down overall costs in the long run. It was not an easy task.
Art and Joe knew the value of QueensCare, and so they wanted it to last forever. So they set up how much money could be spent every year to assist the poor, and then the rest would be reinvested again so that the organization could continue on and on.
On January 1st, 2000, Joe Brandlin and Art Barron retired from their senior management positions, continuing their board membership until retiring from the board in 2008 and 2006, respectively.
So after the sale of the hospital, my dad stepped in as CEO for a year, during which time he had a search for the following CEO, which was Terry Bonecutter, and came to be our first long-term CEO for, I think, about 10 years. And then I followed Terry when he retired.
Brandlin continued to provide leadership in specified areas until his death in 2010. While Barron kept his eyes out from his retirement home in Santa Barbara until his death, just 5 days shy of his 101st birthday in 2021. They had given their all to the creation of something that could now live in perpetuity.
QueensCare made the decision years ago that our fund would last in perpetuity, and that makes investing much more interesting because we can focus on the long-term benefit to the portfolio. We know that there will be funding available in the future for whatever needs exist at that time.
After learning about QueensCare and digging in deeper, once I became hired, I understood just how sophisticated the investment board was. And this was an organization that cared deeply about managing the future, making sure that there would be sufficient financing to fund the organization for decades.
A healthcare organization unlike any other continues delivering truly amazing outcomes, providing a broad spectrum of services and collaborating with surrounding healthcare nonprofits and hospitals to achieve common goals.
We contract with local hospitals. When they have a patient that arrives in their doors that needs to be admitted, that has no form of coverage, they will put that patient into QueensCare's program. They will send us the bill for the patient, and all we need to do is make sure that the patient qualifies.
QueensCare, where uninsured and underinsured patients discharged from local hospitals receive letters telling them their hospital bills have been paid.
I was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Hospital and had to have emergency surgery. I had just been laid off from my job the day before and had no health insurance. So I was in shock that a $100,000 bill fell on my lap. I do believe in miracles. I received 2 letters from QueensCare. They wiped out my entire bill.
At-risk patients are seen early and often at their houses of worship or trusted community centers.
QueensCare is different because we go to where patients are, especially faith communities are places of trust for our patients. People who haven't been in the healthcare system, we're doing just like preventive health. We're screening blood sugar, blood pressure, cholesterol, things like that, helping people prevent illness and their spiritual needs. To the people we serve, that makes all the difference in the world.
What I get from working per diem as a parish nurse is a connection to why I teach. I went to UCLA and it seemed like everything they were saying about people who were not white is that their health was poor. And I got tired of hearing what was happening and not of what was being done about it.
Children have their first dental appointments and learn proper hygiene, bringing these learnings home to their families. Adolescents discover their struggles in school were really because of vision deficits that have now disappeared because of their new glasses.
The mobile programs have been operating for decades, providing services to thousands of students who would otherwise not have access to services. The Vision program provides free glasses, and our dental trailers provide free services as well to ensure that every student that comes through our trailers gets treatment at no cost to the parents. We've seen thousands and thousands of patients throughout the Los Angeles community.
They feel welcomed, safe and secure at the hands of licensed therapists who support their mental health and behavioral needs. Hospital patients fearful of their health challenges are blessed with reassurance and comfort from visiting chaplains ministering to people of all faiths.
While they're in the hospital, we believe in whole person care. So one aspect of that is spirituality.
And we're there to support them, to be their advocate. It's really an honor for us to be there to help the patients any way we can.
Students and medical professionals serving those in need receive scholarships and educational support.
Since 2006, we average 25 to 30 scholarships a year. If the student is attending a graduate program, medical school, or a 4-year institution, the scholarships can go up to $10,000. It's added up to between $3 and $4 million we've given in total.
It was a blessing to be able to have people within the QueensCare family to push me to pursue an education. And then for the organization to actually fund me, it was because of the scholarship that I received that I am where I'm at now. It's hard to say thank you because I feel like thank you is not enough.
My whole purpose and mission in life has been shaped by my experiences growing up in a disadvantaged community. I realized that the best way to address the needs of my community was by becoming a physician. My family was for sure unable to support me financially, so I was going to have to rely on grants and scholarships out in the community. I've been lucky enough to find QueensCare scholarship. It's made a huge difference in my ability to pay for medical school.
Healthcare and community-based organizations help QueensCare expand its reach even further through their own missions and programs funded by charitable grants.
QueensCare has an annual budget of between $18 and $20 million a year general. About $5 million goes for inpatient care. About $2 million goes into emergency room care. We operate our own programs out of that $20 million. Whatever is available after that, we make grants to make sure that they go out into the community.
Today, QueensCare operates a $20 million annual budget supported by a 9-figure investment fund, caring for the medical, personal, and spiritual needs of countless people every day of the year. What began as a humble mission by a handful of dedicated, compassionate nuns has now distributed close to $500 million in direct and indirect care to individuals, families, and organizations of Los Angeles County.
I was at White Memorial for 24 years, and we received funding from QueensCare. And over the 24 years, it was, I think, around $17 million.
And every single dollar has served to support the health needs of thousands of Los Angelinos since 1998.
I think we've done a good job. I think we've continued the mission, expanding our ability to help people. We have a great team. We have been careful stewards of our assets. And I think both Dad and Art would be very happy with where QueensCare is today.
Since the sale of the hospital in 1998, QueensCare has supported thousands of individuals and entities with over $400 million in direct and indirect healthcare services, scholarships, and charitable grants.
There are always people who fall through the cracks of the healthcare system, and we're there to catch them.
It has been a long journey indeed, with no shortage of struggles along the way. And it has changed the course of many lives because of the selfless dedication of the sisters, staff, and board members who have given their all to this great and noble purpose. A true miracle in progress.
I believe the Franciscan Sisters have always been guided by divine providence, and they go out and do the works of neighborly love. In our case, it's the works of healing and teaching.
Doing our works of neighborly love, that's the thread.
Yeah.